Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And NBC News is laying a bunch of people off as they're getting ready to convert to, well, I guess Ms. Now on the spinoff side, but they don't need as many people at NBC News. And Pink News is running with, they're laying off all the LGBTQ plus Latino, Asian American, and Black diversity teams.
Yeah, that's not exactly what's going on, but does it happen to be that way? Yeah, but is that the only reason? No.
No, but this always happens when there are layoffs and there are people that just happen to be of a certain kind, right?
In this one too, I think they're like satellite offices that might focus on certain demographics, but they're still keeping people there. They're just not keeping all the people there.
Right. So let's talk about this because, things are changing rapidly. This is why MSNBC is basically getting the boot from NBC and becoming Ms. Now, which I guess they're officially going to change their name to that on the 14th of November. And they have a lot of redundancies and they're pretty much on their own after this. They're like, hey, we're not even going to support you with the news. So you're going to have to freaking figure it out going forward. Womp womp. So we'll talk about the job cuts and then we'll talk about how diverse people are most affected.
Isn't it interesting though? What the implication there with the headline is you're not allowed to get to lay off or fire people that are diverse. You're only allowed to fire straight white men. That's basically the implication.
So a lot of these people, we'll talk about it. Okay, before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. You'll get a woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
A lot of these people, okay, not all of them, but a lot of them were probably brought in because of their race, gender, sexual orientation to tick certain checkboxes. Again, not everybody. I'm talking... There are highly skilled people that come in shape, size, gender, you know the drill, right? But we did have a period of time where it was very fashionable and in fact encouraged in some cases mandated that you hired people of a certain kind to fill a quota to make your workplace look more diverse. And now that they don't need them anymore, guess what? They're gone.
Well, yeah, and a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times these people are kind of activisty, which is a problem too, especially in a place like MSNBC, NBC. The thing is, though, what you're talking about is exactly what I said is wrong with DEI. Yeah. Is the fact that immediately you go to the thought that, they're probably hired to fill mandates. And that's, that was never fair to begin with, but it's not untrue either, but it was never fair to begin with. And that's what the problem with DEI is, which I keep saying. It's like you're hiring people that maybe not as qualified just based on checkboxes and who has more checkboxes. So you can get kickbacks or whatever from the government or your high fives from your friends. But also the fact that those who are qualified are automatically, everybody just assumes they aren't. And it's kind of racism all over again. Beyond the racism of just, hiring people that are not white, straight or male.
Yeah, because you're always going to wonder. I mean, I would wonder. I'd be like, hey, I'm here, but I just happen to be XYZ thing. Am I here because I'm good at what I do, or am I here because they needed somebody like me at this company?
I would just make sure I'm so good that there's never a question.
Yes, yeah. Let's bring skills back. Let's be incredibly good. And look, there's just a lot of redundancies in general in these news outlets because they're all cratering. They're all failing miserably. People are tuning out. They're not watching cable news like they used to. They're not watching late night like they used to. We'll go out to New York Post, talk about the layoffs in general, then we'll talk about how diverse people are most affected. So New York Post has NBC News to cut 150 jobs. 7% of their workforce as staffers are dreading what's to come at 30 Rock. They said it's its largest round of layoffs in years, with about 150 employees expected to lose their job this week as the network adjusts to life without its cable siblings, MSNBC and CNBC, according to a report.
Right, but that's going to happen no matter what. Like when you do things like this and you're spinning things off or you're selling things off or you're downsizing or whatever, it's inevitable. You're going to have a huge amount of people get laid off because there are going to be redundancies or they're losing their jobs. Now, another post I saw said that there are like 100 and some job openings available around the company right now. So some people are going to be able to move to other locations and they'll be fine. but it's nothing to do with I'm against LGBTQ whatever diversity. It's just about the fact that they downsized and got rid of it. I would have cut those things off a long time ago. You don't leave a cancer on your body. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't know what they were expecting. I mean, it's very weird too that they're cutting them loose as we're going into Trump's second term, because that was where all the ratings came from. I think they're like, you know what, you guys are a liability. We already had, again, the guy going off about Charlie Kirk got fired. And I think they're like, anymore, they're like, yeah, these people are a liability.
They're probably can't get rid of you fast enough.
I'm going to be honest. I think a lot of cases, a lot of these companies, they don't want those people there, but they're afraid to fire them because they're afraid of like social media backlash. They're afraid of lawsuits, whatever. And now they can just point to the government and be like, well, DEI is illegal now. And, we're going to spin you off. I think they spun MSNBC off on its own just to be rid of it, so they didn't have the liability.
Probably. That's what I think.
I mean, that's the truth, because they're like looking at all these lawsuits and stuff, and they're like,
it's a losing proposition too, because their ratings were going down,
yeah.
And then they have these news anchors who just think they're above everything and can say whatever they want. I mean, we're seeing it across the board, so I wouldn't want to deal with it either. But anyway, back to the point.
The point is they've already been laying people off. I did hear about that. It's Versant. It's not Spinco. It's Versant. But they were doing a reorganization. They said
they changed the name from Spinco.
Spinco sounds like Spumco.
I know, but I was like, why would they call it Spinco to begin with? Because I mean, beyond that, what you're saying, we always joke about the truth without the spin or without the twist, and then you're calling yourself Spinco. It doesn't exactly evoke, a good thing, good thoughts.
I think it was a placeholder for spin-off company. They didn't know what to call it yet.
But Spinco, but I mean, that was the most aptly named I could think of. I was like, well, you're on the nose.
So this is a side tangent, because sometimes placeholders stick. So G.I. Joe, the movie, with the infamous Cobra Law, right? Cobra Law was supposed to be the dumbest name ever. I mean, the whole movie was not great, but the intro was cool. So Cobra Law was supposed to be a placeholder name because the writer of the movie was talking to Hasbro and was like, okay, well, there's going to be a bigger Cobra organization in the Himalayas, like Shangri-La. So we'll just placeholder name Cobra Law, and Hasbro liked it. And they're like, Cobra Law, that's a great name. So then we got
every time you say Cobra Law, all I could think of is Cobra La 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 La.
I think Antifa should do that. That'd be funny, like Antifa.
That's what they say as they're being drug away. Anyway,
oh my God.
So anyway, get back to the point.
The point being is that they changed the name, and that doesn't tell you. I love these generic company names that don't tell you what the company actually is. It's just like it could be anything. Versant. Anyway, they said NBC News has been trimming around the edges in anticipation of the deeper cuts insiders told status, but the network's workforce will need to shrink substantially now that it will no longer provide shared resources to MSNBC and CNBC. Right. You're on your own, bitches.
Yeah, you have, and they can't afford to keep you. They can't afford to keep you. I mean, and it is what it is.
They said, joint editorial meetings are going to cease, and MSNBC will no longer share reporting or production infrastructure with the broadcast division. We can already see their label their logo took a massive hit. It's like they don't have access to the ad agency anymore, apparently. I think they're going to fall flat in their freaking faces is what I think is going to happen. I think they're
if that does happen, it just proves, kind of to what we've been saying is a lot of these places only exist because they've been funded and they've been propped up with the money. And that's what people, scream about when the stuff that they want, it's not viable. And then when they have to stand on their own, they can't. When it has to hold its own, pull its own weight, it cannot do it. And that's what we had with cartoons and comics and stuff for years. And now these companies have to walk it back because it never could stand on its own.
Well, we'll see how it goes. They said that there's been an uneasy relationship because MSNBC is almost all opinion. And they said that... no
NBC, shit. You think? They're admitting it? Okay.
It doesn't New York Post, but...
Consider the source. Okay, yeah.
So here's the thing, though, that I think... And they said CNBC actually has had more autonomy, right? But I think that... what is potentially going on is the MSNBC side of things is infecting the NBC side of things, because we've seen more MSNBC type news coming out of NBC News, like when we had that reporter was it Cat 10 Barge, one that was going around and attacking all the YouTubers and stuff. Like that is something you would expect from MSNBC, not from NBC News. And I think that because they're sharing editorial, like all that bullshit was starting to bleed over into.
So basically, MSNBC and CNBC are gone, but NBC stays.
Yeah, and it's just going to be NBC News.
So they're going to stick with the stuff that's more, trying to be fact-based, less lawsuit.
Yes, we're going to go back to just reporting the news, and that's why they're so angry, because even CBS News and ABC News, they've all veered into opinion territory. It used to be when back in the day when we were kids, the opinions were rare and they were marked as such. Like if Andy Rooney would go off on a bender about something, or Geraldo would go off on a bender about something, it was clearly marked as this particular journalist's personal opinion. Now their opinions are the news. It's basically
right. They state their opinions as if they're the news. Yeah.
Yeah. And it used to just be facts. So many people died in a bus accident, whatever. Now it's like so many people died in a bus accident, and it's all Trump's fault, and here's why.
Yeah.
That never happened.
We're going to do a review. Well, this isn't them, but we're going to do a review of gaming systems. Let me talk about why I hate capitalism.
Why I hate capitalism.
That wasn't them, though. Okay, so of course it's pink news, right?
Yes.
And they're like, it's, most affected are the minorities, according to the layoffs, even though there's a lot of people being laid off.
Yeah.
But there's a reason, though.
Yeah, as reported by The Wrap, the cuts announced to staff Wednesday are part of a broader layoff of about 150 employees. Okay, the verticals, NBC, BLK, NBC Asia, okay.
Right,
NBC
that's what I'm telling
Asia
you.
American, NBC Latino, and NBC Out will no longer have teams dedicated, but will continue to publish stories related to specific groups.
It's not a targeted thing. It's just that they're anything. It's probably other smaller verticals too, that they're all being whittled down to as a few people, because you don't need a massive staff for these. And they're spinning it as, it's because they're getting rid of these people because they're minorities in DEI, but that's not exactly what's going on.
Yeah, so that is misleading, because they're basically like, they're kicking out all the diverse people. No, they're basically taking unnecessary spin-off publications and whittling it down. They said it might only be 5 people that post stories.
They're not getting rid of it.
No, they're not getting rid of
it. We're not paying for all these people for these little, niche things.
They said, one source told The Wrap that NBC may retain as little as 5 staffers. They added that the cuts.
How many do you need?
Yeah, I know, right? We
do with 2.
I know, right? Occasional freelance help. But that's the thing too. So just again, slight side tangent, the Barry Weiss situation, right? At CBS News. Part of the reason they're terrified is Barry Weiss built her Substack blog up to a $150 million media company, and she got put in charge of CBS News. And she did it herself at first, and then she just brought a couple dozen other people in as she started making more money. Mm-hmm. But they're talking at NBC News, they have 2,000 people working there.
Right. And they're saying that they'll start going to bring freelance in as necessary too. They're just talking, they're not keeping staffers there.
Right.
I'm sorry, each of these don't need more than 5 staffers to begin with. And then freelance, that's an awful lot of help for these things. I'm thinking, how is this some tragic, oh my God, they're getting rid of it, but they're not. They're getting rid of the overabundance of people and going for freelance and going, with the skeleton crew, because they aren't big enough to warrant a huge amount of people.
Yeah. And
it's not that big of a deal.
It's a big deal because a lot of these people are probably union and they thought they're going to be there for life. And
they're all trying to spin it. It's against diversity, and it's
against diversity.
They're getting cuts across the whole way. I mean, okay, each of those places those are not making the whole 150 in cuts.
So they're going to have 140 new open positions. This is how, again, as a corporate guy, this is how you get rid of people. You basically do a little shuffling and you're like, that position's been eliminated, but we've got this new position. And that translation is, I didn't want Jim working for us anymore because he's an asshole and he always smells like fish.
Well, this isn't new. It's just open positions. But basically, they can say you can apply.
Various
consider applying for the new role. Doesn't mean you're qualified. Doesn't mean they'll hire you. If you're a problem, they're probably going to be like, yeah, no, you don't qualify.
This is how they get rid of the problems, though. This is every company I've worked for. They're especially now. I'm watching. I don't know if they've dealt with it yet or not over at Kickstarter. I'm watching the Kickstarter situation closely because there are a lot of very demanding activists over there, and they're not giving in to them this time. even though Kickstarter is a pretty progressive company. So I'm kind of watching to see what happens. Like, are they going to use this as an opportunity to be like, well, you know what? We gave you a chance to agree to our terms. You didn't. So see ya.
Well, given the ones that they're pulling, some of these ones, not all of the ones, but some of them would definitely be places I would think activists were hanging out. You know, in those different branches.
I mean, can you imagine? Yeah, of course, somebody working at NBC out is well, like, why can't? And then they're talking about how they had a newscaster, Thomas Roberts, who was openly gay back in 2015. I'm like, well, then what's the purpose of NBC out if your main newscasters are gay anyway? It just doesn't make sense to segment it like that. And that is kind of racisty. That is kind of bigoty when you're like, well, you're not good enough to be on the main NBC news. You have to be in the special LGBTQ plus hug box version.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, here's what it's coming down to. They're like, it's all because of Trump.
Oh my God. Of course it is. Of course it is. This move follows an executive order signed by Republican President Donald Trump following his return to the White House to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives from the federal government and the military.
Right, that's the federal government and the military. That's not MSNBC.
What they're doing, these companies have been waiting. They've been waiting. I almost feel like in a lot of ways,
changed the name. They're still doing it. They just call it something different.
Yeah, they hide it, and it should honestly, if you're going to do something like that, it should be part of like human resources. It shouldn't be, we're going to have a separate page on our, you're like calling attention to it. But they said the order claims DEI is akin to sex and racial discrimination and inadvertently undermines leadership, merit, and unit cohesion, thereby eroding lethality and force readiness. Is that for the
I don't
military?
know. Look, DEI has been a problem because it does force hiring of people that might not be qualified. But even the ones that are going to be always questioned. And it actually, I would be happy that it was gone because now people aren't going to question me anymore. I'm there based on merit, not because, people are going to say, well, you're only a DEI hire if they didn't like me. It's like, well, I can't be, right? Because they got rid of DEI. But, I just think it's hilarious because his mandate isn't even for the private company here. It's for the government and the military and things like that.
Yeah, I know.
And government-related positions.
What they're doing is they're using that as an opportunity to get rid of programs they wanted to get rid of anyway. I think they just didn't know how to do it because they were so afraid of public backlash before if they got rid of it. It's kind of like Homelander. Right. The meme where he thinks like, oh shit, people are going to be pissed at me. And then they're all cheering for him. It's like, oh, because that's what they're afraid of. They were afraid that everybody was going to be like, how could you get rid of the DEI? Because these journalists are going to be like that. But the general public's going to be like, could you please get rid of the DEI?
Yeah, it is not conducive to harmony within the workplace and stuff like that either. And especially like you mentioned it a little bit earlier, when you're going in and each group that based on race or ethnicity or whatever is having their own club. I'm like, then all you're doing, and I'm not saying you can't do that, but all you're doing is just being exclusionary. Again, it's just okay when they're being exclusionary. And it's a very, it's like when the conventions were having panels, but no white straight men were allowed to be in any of them or weren't allowed to be in the parties. You were allowed to be there if you're white, straight, or male. And I'm like, that's discrimination. I'm sorry, but it's discrimination. And it's also not conducive to making a workplace environment that is welcoming to everybody, because just because someone's white, straight, or male doesn't mean that they hate people that aren't. That's ridiculous. But this isn't exactly the way that they're leading it off to be. They're hitting those teams, but they're hitting other teams as well. It's not just those teams that are getting hit. And they don't need, if they're a minor part and they're not paying for all this anymore, why do they need that many people on staff? They're not saying they aren't going to get it done. They're not saying they're getting rid of it. They're just saying they're cutting down the staff and hiring freelancers.
Yeah.
Which a lot of places are doing. It has nothing to do with that.
All right. We're going to wrap this up.
Yes.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.
For more pop culture news, views, and rants, go to news.clownfishtv.com. That's news.clownfishtv.com.